International trade is always controversial. It has been said by one economist that international trade is like the economic version of the movie Groundhog Day. The same arguments need to be refuted every decade. So, what is it about international trade that makes things different than just trade? Trade isn't controversial. I mean, I trade with Wegmans all the time. I traded with a contractor to buy my home. I did not build my own car. I bought one. I traded with the car dealer. So when we talk about domestic trade, there doesn't seem to be an issue. But when it's when we cross those international borders. The economics of trade does not change, by the way. When I trade with Wegmans, it doesn't matter if I trade with Wegmans in here in Syracuse or, well, a grocery store in Canada. The economics is the same. But the politics changes when we cross borders. That's where things get really fuzzy and interesting and controversial. Well, let's look at some of the why trade. This outlines some of the opposition to trade. And why do we trade in the first place? Because we want to be better off. That's it. That's the incentive to trade. That's why we do it. When I buy bread at Wegmans, it's because I value the bread more than the money. I pay them for the bread, and they value the money more than the bread. So we make an exchange, and both sides are better off. That's why we trade. And countries going to international trade, countries that are open, their borders are open to trade, have much higher standards of living than countries that are closed off. Well, this gets into that right there, some of the arguments and so forth. Okay, what? Trade is good? I've never heard that before. This is something I hear all the time. Well, we know when people talk about trade, by the way, it's usually implied international trade because nobody is talking about trade within our city or within our country. That's assumed to be just fine and dandy. When we specialize in what we do best and trade with people who specialize in what they do best, we're all better off, right? So, and we have a higher standard of living. So trade usually it's implied when it's controversial, we're implied as international trade. So yeah, that's actually a good thing. So a little bit about that there. Hearts and heads. Oh, this is a heartbreaking situation. An article by Paul Krugman where good intentions, no doubt about it. But we have to think a little bit harder and longer about the outcomes of our good intentions. Sometimes when we boycott products, thinking we're helping the kids who make those products overseas. Well, let's step back a second. Why are they working there? It's because that's the best opportunity they have. That's why they're there. And if we boycott what they make, that means they lose their jobs. And as Paul Krugman points out here, where they end up is not pretty. So good intentions gone awry. Brexit made simple. Well, this is a few years back when England decided to leave, or Great Britain, I guess, decided to leave the European Economic Union. Big deal. Markets reacted. Why? Why did markets crash? Well, I can't say they crashed, but there was a huge response downward, not just in Europe, Great Britain, but here in the US. This kind of goes through all the links if you're interested in a little more detail on that. And a Paul Solomon video there. And then the usual Homework and Connect Economics USA. I'll see you in Module 9.